𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗡𝗧𝗔𝗖𝗧 بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this video we will expose another lie of the French group Al-Islaah, who claim to be reformists. They claim that Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Saffar, a 3rd century Shia scholar, does not mention anything about 12 Imams and 𝗙𝗢𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗍 in his book Basa'ir 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗪.
And that's why other Shias like Zaydis, like Fathis, like Waqifis, these are all Shia sects who don't subscribe to the 12 Imam theory. It's because this was not common knowledge among the Shia that there would be 12 Imams. So the other narrative is that this number 12, so even Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Saffar, for example, in Basa'ir 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗪, he died in the year 290. So you can see the ghaiba has happened already. It's ghaiba sughra.
Yeah.
But even as he's writing his book in ghaiba sughra, he makes no mention of 12verism or there being 12 Imams. So this idea of 12verism is not there in the 3rd century.
There in that 3rd century.
It's at the beginning of the 4th century. There's a whole research paper on this that we might discuss in the future that explains to you that this whole concept of 12verism, it comes to you at the start of the 4th century.
That's when the scholars start pushing it in, yeah.
Right.
As you just heard, he claims that As-Saffar did not know anything about the 12verism, and they claim that the 12ver doctrine was only formed after him at the beginning of the 4th century, which is a blatant lie. Because As-Saffar has indeed narrated in his book Basa'ir 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗪 not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 narrations, he has narrated even more than that about the number of Imams, being 12. To keep this video short, we will show you 2 examples with authentic chains to expose his lies, and we will furthermore prove that As-Saffar has taken both of these reports from the books of pre-occultation authors, to show you once again that this French group Al-Islaah does not want to have anything to do with the truth. Sheikh Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Saffar al-Qummi narrates in his book Basa'ir 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 Volume 2, page 110, through his chain of narrators from 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗢𝗪 from Abi Ja'far Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, who said, قال رسول الله من أهل بيتي 12 محدثا. The Messenger of Allah said, from among my family there will be 12 muhaddath. فقال له 𝗙𝗢𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗍𝗍 كان أخا علي لأمه سبحان الله كان محدثا 𝗙𝗢𝗥𝗕𝗙 لذلك. Then Abdullah ibn Zayd, who was a maternal brother of Ali, i.e. Ali ibn al-Husayn Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, saying, exalted is Allah, you said muhaddath in a state of denial. فأقبل عليه أبو جعفر عليه السلام فقال أما والله وإن ابن أمك بعد قد كان يعرف ذلك. Then Abu Ja'far alayhi salam turned to him and said, by Allah, the son of your mother indeed knew this. قال فلما قال ذلك سكت الرجل. When the Imam said that, the man then stayed silent. فقال أبو جعفر هي التي هلك فيها أبو الخطاب لم يدر تعويل المحدث والنبي. Abu Ja'far said, here Abu Ja'far is As-Saffar himself, not Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. This was what destroyed Abu al-Khattab. He did not know the meaning of muhaddath and nabi. So as we just read, the Messenger of Allah said that there will be 12 muhaddath from among his Ahlul Bayt, his family. Muhaddath is a quality of the Imams that is defined in the same book of As-Saffar through many other narrations. Here we present an example that describes the difference between Rasul, Nabi and Muhaddath. Sheikh Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Saffar narrates through the same chain of narrators, this time from Zurara, who was brother of Humran, the narrator of the previous narration. He says, سألت أبو جعفر عليه السلام من الرسول من النبي ومن المحدث. I asked Abu Ja'far Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam about Rasul, Nabi and Muhaddath. فقال الرسول الذي يأتيه جبرائيل فيكلمه قبلا فيراه كما يرى أحدكم الذي يكلمه فهذا الرسول. He said, Rasul is the one to whom Jibreel comes and talks to him face to face, and he sees him like someone from among you talks to someone else. This is the Rasul or messenger. والنبي الذي يؤتى في النوم نحو رؤيا إبراهيم عليه السلام ونحو ما كان يأخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله من السبات إذا أتاه جبرائيل في النوم فهكذا النبي. As about the Nabi, he is the one to whom the angel comes while he is asleep. Like the dream of Ibrahim, and like when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to get numb at times when Jibreel came to him while he was asleep. So this is the Nabi or Prophet. ومنهم من يجتمع له الرسالة والنبوة فكان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله رسولا يأتيه جبرائيل قبلا فيكلمه ويراه ويأتيه في النوم. And among them there are those who have both of these, the Risala and the Nubuwah combined. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was a Rasul. Jibreel used to come to him and talk to him face to face, and he could see him, and Jibreel also used to come to him while he was asleep. وأما المحدث فهو الذي يسمع كلام الملك فيحدثه من غير أن يراه ومن غير أن يأتيه في النوم. As about Al-Muhaddath, he is the one who hears the speech of the angel and talks with him without seeing him and without the angel coming to him while asleep. So this is the basic definition of a muhaddath. Muhaddath is someone that angels talk to without him seeing the angels. He is neither a Rasul or messenger nor a Nabi or prophet. And this concept is widely known in the Islamic literature, both in the Sunni sources and Shia sources. We don't want to delve into that concept any further for obvious reasons in this short video. The other interesting point here is that the narration that we presented is a pre-ghaiba or pre-occultation report from a pre-occultation book. Shaykh al-Najashi says about the first narrator that As-Saffar narrates these two narrations from, he says in his book Al-Fihrist, page 265, علي بن حسان الواسطي أبو الحسن القصير المعروف بالمنمس أمر أكثر من 100 سنة وكان لا بأس به. علي بن الحسن الواسطي أبو الحسن القصير, known as Al-Munammis, he lived more than 100 years and he was a reliable narrator. الرؤيا عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام روى عنه حديثه في 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗦𝗧 مسلم له كتاب يرويه عدة من أصحابنا. He has narrated from Abi Abdullah Imam al-Sadiq عليه السلام. He has narrated from him. His narration is from 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗦𝗧 Muslim. He has a book that a group of our scholars have narrated. And the chain that Al-Najashi mentions here for that book is through As-Saffar himself from Ali ibn Hassan. This means that the narration of As-Saffar from Ali ibn Hassan is obviously from the book of Ali ibn Hassan, because As-Saffar was the narrator of the book of Ali ibn Hassan as well. The other point is that Ali ibn Hassan has narrated some narrations directly from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, who passed away in the year 148, meaning that Ali ibn Hassan must have been born long before that at an age to be able to narrate narrations from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. If we say he was at least 10 years old, for example, and he narrated those narrations from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam in the last year of his life, the year 148, and assume that Ali ibn Hassan lived even for 120 years, and narrated this narration of 12 muhaddath to As-Saffar in the last year of his life, it still would be the year 258 Hijri, where Imam al-Askari alayhi salam was still alive and occultation had not yet happened. We assumed with the most unlikely numbers, whereas realistically speaking, As-Saffar must have narrated this narration from Ali ibn Hassan long before occultation, around the first quarter of the 3rd century. Another important fact is that the narrator above, Ali ibn Hassan, whose name is Musa ibn Bikr, he is also an author, and his book is a 2nd century source. And in many early sources like Al-Mahasin of Al-Barqi and Al-Kafi, Ali ibn Hassan al-Wasiti has narrated many narrations from Musa ibn Bikr, indicating that Ali ibn Hassan's narration from Musa ibn Bikr are most probably also from the book of Musa ibn Bikr, like the two narrations about Muhaddath in Basa'ir al-Darajat that we presented, indicating it to have been taken most probably from one of the chapters of his book about this same topic. So either As-Saffar has taken it from the book of his teacher Ali ibn Hassan, who has taken it from the book of his teacher Musa ibn Bikr, or As-Saffar has narrated it from his teacher Ali ibn Hassan, who has taken it from the book of his teacher Musa ibn Bikr. The second narration that we wanted to present, Shaykh Muhammad ibn al-Hasan As-Saffar narrates it in his book Basa'ir al-Darajat in a chapter titled Babun fil a'imma annahum alayhim as-salam muhaddathun mufahhamun, a chapter about the Imams being muhaddathun mufahhamun. We already showed you what muhaddath means, someone that angels talk to, and mufahhamun is also very similar to that concept. Mufahhamun is someone who is mulham, or someone who gets implicit divine inspiration. The first narration he narrates it from Imam Riza alayhi salam, who said, Al-A'immatu ulama sadiqun mufahhamun muhaddathun. The Imams are owners of knowledge, truthful, mufahhamun, muhaddathun. So we see that being a muhaddath is a quality of the Imams. The second narration is the narration that we wanted to present, that Shaykh Muhammad ibn al-Hasan As-Saffar narrates through his chain of narrators from Imamate ibn Mihran, who says, كنت أنا وأبو بصير مع محمد بن عمران مولى أبي جعفر عليه السلام بمنزله بمكة. قال فقال محمد بن عمران. So Imamate ibn Mihran says, I was together with Abu Basir and Muhammad ibn Umran, the freed slave of Abi Ja'far alayhi salam, in a house in Mecca. He said, Muhammad ibn Umran then said, سمعت أبا عبد الله يقول نحن 12 محدثا. I heard Abu Abdullah Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam saying, we are 12 محدث. قال له أبو بصير والله لسمعت من أبي عبد الله عليه السلام قال فحلفه مرة أو 2 أنه سمعته. Abu Basir said to him, by God, did you really hear this from Abi Abdullah alayhi salam? He said, then Abu Basir made him to swear once or twice whether he really heard it from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. قال فقال أبو بصير كذا سمعت أبا جعفر عليه السلام يقول. He said, then Abu Basir said, I heard rather Abu Ja'far Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam saying the same. As we just saw, As-Saffar narrates this narration through Abi Talib. Let's see who he is. Sayyid Al-Khouyi writes in his book Mu'jam Rijal al-Hadith, volume 11, page 237, Abdullah ibn Salt Abu Talib قال النجاشي Abdullah ibn Salt Abu Talib al-Qummi مولى بني تيم 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗦𝗡 ثقة مسكون إلى روايته. النجاشي said Abdullah ibn Salt Abu Talib al-Qummi, servant of Bani Tim 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗦𝗡, he is trustworthy, his narrations are relied upon. رواية عن الرضا عليه السلام يعرف له كتاب التفسير. He has narrated from Imam al-Riza عليه السلام, a book of tafsir is known for him. And then he mentions his chain of narrators to his book. Shaykh al-Tusi grades him as trustworthy as well and counts him among the companions of Imam al-Riza and Imam al-Jawad alayhim as-salam. Also, Shaykh al-Barqi counts him among the companions of Imam al-Riza and Imam al-Jawad alayhim as-salam as well. Sayyid Al-Khouyi then quotes Shaykh al-Saduq writing in the introduction of his book 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗢 about the family of as-Salt, and then says, وكان أحمد بن محمد بن عيسى في فضله وجلالته يروي عن أبي طالب عبد الله بن السلت القمي رضي الله عنه. And Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Isa, in his excellence and his high position, used to narrate from Abi Talib Abdullah ibn Salt al-Qummi. May Allah be pleased with him. وبقي أبو طالب حتى لقيه محمد ibn al-Hasan al-Saffar والرعي عنه. And Abu Talib lived until Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Saffar met him and narrated from him. So we see that As-Saffar was from among the last narrators who has narrated from Abu Talib Abdullah ibn Salt, indicating that this was most probably before Al-Ghaibah, which happened in the year 260 Hijri, while As-Saffar died 30 years later in the year 290 Hijri. We will present more proofs for this in a minute. It is important to note that As-Saffar is not the only sub-narrator from Abdullah ibn Salt, nor is Abdullah ibn Salt the only sub-narrator from Uthman ibn Isa for this narration, as it is evident from other sources that we will present to you. As about the top narrator 𝗬𝗪 ibn Mihran, Shaykh al-Najashi says 𝗬𝗪 ibn Mihran ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Hadrami مولى عبد بن وائل ibn حجر الحضرمي يكنى أبا ناشرة وقيل أبا محمد. His name is 𝗬𝗪 ibn Mihran ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Hadrami. He was a freed slave of Abd ibn Wa'il ibn Hijr al-Hadrami. His kunya was Aba Nashira, and it is also said that his kunya was Aba Muhammad. كان يتجر في القز ويخرج به إلى حران. He used to trade silk and used to transport it to Harran. ونزل الكوفة في الكندة, and he moved to Kufa in Kinda. رعي عن أبي عبد الله وأبي الحسن عليهما السلام ومات بالمدينة. He has narrated from Abi Abdullah Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and Abi al-Hasan Imam al-Kadhib alayhi salam, and he died in Medina. ثقة ثقة, he is very, very trustworthy. وله بالكوفة مسجد بحضرموت, and he has a mosque in Hazramut in Kufa. وهو مسجد ذرعة بن محمد الحضرمي بعده, and that is the mosque of ذرعة ibn Muhammad after him. And at the end, Shaykh al-Najashi mentions also his chain of narrators to the book of 𝗬𝗪 ibn Mihran, which is interestingly through the same sub-narrator that we see in Basa'ir al-Darajat, i.e. Uthman ibn Isa. We will come back to the analysis of the chain once again. Shaykh al-Kulayni narrates the same narration through a different chain of narrators up to Abu Talib Abdullah ibn Salt, with the rest of the chain of the narrators identical to Basa'ir al-Darajat. Shaykh al-Saduq also narrates this narration from As-Saffar to a few of his teachers, and in Ananator, Shaykh al-Mahudhi grades the chain of the narrators for it to be sahih or authentic, and all its narrators to be trustworthy and noble high-ranking scholars. And Shaykh al-Saduq narrated it in his other books, 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗓 and 𝗬𝗢𝗓 أخبار رضا as well. And in one of the narrations of 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗢𝗓, Shaykh al-Saduq narrates it through a completely different chain from Uthman ibn Isa, not through Abi Talib Abdullah ibn Salt, which is another supporting evidence. We will come back to it in a minute. So if we put these chains of narrators in a chart, it looks like this. As-Saffar's chain is through Abi Talib Abdullah ibn Salt, from Uthman ibn Isa, from 𝗬𝗪 ibn Mihran, from Muhammad ibn Umran, from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and also from Abu Basir from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. Shaykh al-Kulayni, on the other hand, narrates this narration from two of his teachers, from Muhammad ibn al-Husayn ibn Abi al-Khattab, from Abu Talib. The important point here is that Muhammad ibn al-Husayn ibn Abi al-Khattab died in the year 262 Hijri, i.e. 2 years after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, which indicates that most probably he had heard this narration from Abi Talib long before that year. Otherwise, Muhammad ibn al-Husayn's main student, Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Attar, had also narrated it directly from Abi Talib, especially since all three lived in the same city. They all lived in Qum. Furthermore, from the chains of the narrators of Shaykh al-Saduq, we also see that Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Attar has narrated this narration from As-Saffar as well. So when Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Attar, a Qummi scholar, has narrated the same narration from two of his Qummi teachers, but has not narrated it from the other Qummi narrator above them, i.e. from Abu Talib Abdullah ibn Salt al-Qummi himself directly, And this is not just for this narration, but any other narrations. We don't see Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Attar as a sub-narrator from Abu Talib in any other early Shia sources. This is a clear indication that Abu Talib had passed away long before al-Attar could directly narrate from him. So since even his intermediary narrator to Abu Talib, who is Muhammad ibn al-Husayn ibn Abd al-Khattab, had died in the year 262 Hijri, Abu Talib definitely died long before that, long before the occultation. In addition to that, his teacher As-Saffar was among the last scholars witnessing Abu Talib and narrating from him, as Sheikh As-Saduq has asserted. In addition to all this, the top narrator 𝗬𝗎 ibn Mihran is also an author, as we showed from Fihrist of Al-Najashi. And interestingly, his book has been narrated through the same sub-narrator, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗍 ibn Isa, as we saw from the chains of the narrators of Al-Najashi. And we will see that even the sub-narrator to 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗍 ibn Isa, i.e. Ja'far ibn Abdullah al-Muhammadi, for the entire book of 𝗬𝗎 ibn Mihran appears also in one of the chains of Shaykh As-Saduq in Kamaluddin for the narration of 12 Muhaddith,
as well as the sub-narrator Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Sa'id ibn 𝗦𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗏 al-Hamdani, the famous Zaydi Jarudi scholar.
Which leaves no room for doubt that this narration of 12 Muhaddith has been taken from the book of 𝗬𝗎 ibn Mihran himself at the top of the chain. This is also evident once we look into the other narrations of 𝗬𝗎 ibn Mihran. We see that Uthman ibn Isa appears as a sub-narrator for his narrations frequently in the early Shia books like Al-Mahasin of Al-Barqi, Basa'ir al-Darajat itself, Al-Kafi, and so on. So we can surely say that As-Saffar's narration definitely goes even further back in time, much further back in time, to the period of the earliest Shia books, to the mid-2nd century Shia sources, namely the book of 𝗬𝗎 ibn Mihran himself. And he was a companion of Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam and Imam Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. To wrap it up, we presented the concept of 12 Imams from the book Basa'ir al-Darajat, authored by Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Saffar, which is a 3rd century source, and exposed the lies of these ignorant deviants who claim that the 12er doctrine about the number of Imams being 12 is a 4th century fabrication. More importantly, we proved that both of these authentic reports that we presented from Basa'ir al-Darajat are not only taken from early 3rd century and pre-occultation period sources, rather it is demonstrably evident that they are traceable even further back in time to the mid-2nd century sources. We asked these guys to come out and apologize to their audience for lying to them, or at least admit to their ignorance and admit that they have not read the book themselves. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.